Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Talking in Stations. I'm your kind of host, I guess, for tonight, Kenneth Feld. We're here. We're going to talk about the patch notes from today and a few changes coming to faction warfare. And then, kind of at the end, we'll go over a few advanced features in the Excel add in that I've figured out and a few other people have figured out over time, exactly kind of how to make that work. So we'll start off with the patch notes here. Let me get those up. And here are the patch notes for today. Let me start off with the very first thing. As a Mac user, the Mac client did not work initially, and they took almost 2 hours, I think, before the Mac client was patched and could actually log in. So kudos for fixing that quickly, but it's a shame it had to happen at all. And let's see here. So that was the technical fix, the issue preventing the Mac client from being launched. Now on to the actual uh, meat of the changes. Brand new factional campaign's been launched, the Shipcaster Shadow War. So now, and I actually have a client up, we can go in and look at it. Even if you are in a player corp, you can join a militia and fight for the militia even if your corp is not in faction warfare. So if you're in a nullsec alliance, or in a nullsec corp, nullsec alliance, if you're in a high sec corp, and even if war is turned off for your high sec corp, you don't have any structures or anything, you can still join the militia. Okay, we'll talk about that a little bit more uh, in a few minutes. But right now, it's talking about if you enlist, then there's hacking sites, combat sites, salvaging, mining industry, all kinds of different things that you can do to get started. So as soon as you join the militia, these sites will start showing up for you. And there is also what do they call it here? Stellar Transmuter Research Sites and Transport Relay Research Associated Sites. So all of these are going to be in and around, it says the high sec system around Onaman, and in that, I don't even know how to pronounce that, but in those constellations, and I assume, yeah, they'll be initially present in Namar, Mimitar, so they're all around. But as you do these sites, you're going to be able to turn in data cores. And I assume you'll get LP, skins, all kinds of different things like that, rewards for doing it. But it looks like it's sort of a race for each of the races to construct their own fully functional shipcaster. And I don't know that shipcasters have been fully fleshed out and everyone knows exactly what they are. This has been on Sissy for quite a while, but I don't think anyone went through and actually tried to build one. So you can sign up for the faction warfare using the agency. We'll go over that here in a minute. And there's also, it looks like there's courier sites. So these courier sites, let's see, high security space and around the Empire's chosen headquarters systems. Oh, yeah, and the sites, once you find them and you warp to them, then they appear on the overview. So once they appear on the overview, then people that aren't on your side can warp to you. And once you're in a militia, you are in a constant war. High sec, low sec, null sec, doesn't matter. You're in a constant war with the other factions. So if you go into a site, be prepared to defend yourself because they can absolutely warp in on top of you. Now, like most of the things in faction warfare, these different sites all have limits on the ships that can enter, specifically to kind of keep it even. A lot of this stuff is meant for newer players. A lot of these sites, from what I understand, are alpha friendly, so you can definitely take an alpha character into the lower ones for sure, um, and join the militia as an alpha. But as you work your way up, now see the first ones are just limited to Navy faction and Tech 1 frigates, and then you start moving up. You get into destroyers, Tech 2 frigates, then you work your way up to battle cruisers, Tech 1 faction, Tech 2 cruisers, and all frigates and destroyers, including Tech 3 destroyers. And then it looks like, yeah, anything past that is a free for all. But so the besieged labs require combat. The salvaging sites require NPC destruction. The hacking sites, you need a data analyzer to access the containers, and you steal and recover the data research fragments, index files, decryption keys, data core blueprints from these sites. Manufacture data cores using the blueprints and then turn them into your faction for reward crates and event progression points used to unlock more rewards. Let's see, and you can turn in the data cores at the laboratories, which have been set up in each empire's headquarters system. And there is the 4 empires and the 4 headquarters systems. One thing that just came about too, Intaki here has just had its sex status raised from 0.5 to 0.6 as well. I think that was earlier up in the patch notes. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on there, but it looks to be getting a little bit safer in that system. So, and here's where it talks about, this is the part where it's kind of a race to construction, it seems. They're in Caldari systems and Amar systems. It doesn't say anything about Mimitar or Galente here, but let's see, the locations of where these sites will be available will increase as each faction gains mastery over each research. The sites will give all the capsuleers a suspect timer. So if you're in one of these sites and you get a suspect timer, that means you can be shot. So even if you aren't in a militia, if you enter these sites, you're basically saying, hey, I'm a valid target here, and you can shoot me, and obviously if someone shoots you, you can shoot back. Let's see here. Be aware means that legal combat can happen between otherwise friendly players, such as members of allied militias. You never know who might happen to be on someone else's payroll. Yeah. So there may be spies. That's one thing with this direct enlistment. I don't know how it's going to turn out. I can't wait for some of the underhanded stuff to start happening. It's going to be quite fun, I hope. So the construction phase will unlock once a faction completes both the relay transport and the stellar transmuter research projects. And so then once the construction phase is completed, the shipcaster will be complete. I'm pretty sure right now no one knows how long the construction phase is going to be. No one really knows how long it's going to take to complete the research projects. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there diligently working to get their preferred faction done as fast as possible. So now to the fun stuff. Direct enlistment is now available. You are able to join factional warfare militias as an individual without leaving your corporations. So, one thing it says here is corporations can choose to limit which factions their members can enlist for in the enlistment whitelist, which can be found under the corporation menu under the war section. So we'll talk about that right now. Let me bring up a client and let's see, put it up on the screen. Nope. Alrighty. Okay, that did not work. So let me go here. That should have come up. Oh my. Okay, it says it's the right screen. Okay, well, we're having technical difficulties there, so I'll continue to work on trying to get that going and seeing if I can make it work here in a minute. Let's see here. Window capture. Yes. Okay, so make that 3. Huh, it's not. Okay, let me close the client. Okay, so get myself back up here. Okay, well, I'll keep working on that in the background. Wouldn't be a show with me or Nick here if something crazy didn't happen. But let me get that screen back up. Sorry, I got too many windows open here. So, to sign up, you go to any station belonging to the appropriate faction you wish to join. Select the Enlist Me option in the Factional Warfare window. You can unenlist in any time, but there's a 24-hour cooldown when you unenlist before you can directly enlist again. Oh, that's going to bite me, because I tried to enlist this pilot a little bit ago just to see if it worked, and I unenlisted so I could do it on the show. So it may not work. We may have to grab another pilot to see if it works. Okay, let's see here if we can get this to pop up now. And no, it doesn't want to. All right. Okay, there we go. Is that going to work now? Or is it not going to? No. Okay, well, we can make that work like this maybe? No, why is that screen there? I cannot make that go away. Okay, well, let's see what happens when I call this up. Will it show on top? No, it will not show on top. Alrighty then. Okay. So. We'll keep going over. No, now that's not working. Okay, there we go. Man, oh man, what a rough night. Okay, so following recent political developments between the Empire, ceasefires have been declared between Caldari and Mimitar as well as Galente and Amar. So Caldari and Mimitar players will no longer be at war. Amar and Galente players will no longer be at war. Players in these groups will no longer be able to capture faction warfare complexes in their former allies' war zones. Okay. So it looks like there's going to be a little shakeup here. Could be. Political developments are never good for anything in EVE, pretty much. So I'm sure there'll be quite a bit of stuff coming about that here soon. So for those of you, all 3 people that play with Sound 1, weapons turrets now have movement sounds as they lock and change targets. They are best heard when zoomed in on the ship. Turret impact sounds have been enhanced. New tanking layers have been added to all impact sounds, so the impacts on shields, hull, and armor all now sound different. Now, one of my favorite things. Alliance and Corporation emblems. As of this patch, every single ship in the game has been updated and can now have an Alliance or corporation emblem on the ship. All Corp and Alliance emblems are available for sale for Evermarks, and every single ship in the game can fit and fly your corporation and your Alliance logos. It was kind of a long time coming, but this patch was finally the end of that journey, so every ship in the game can have that. Now we just have, hopefully, structures to go so that corporations have some place to spend their Evermarks. I'm sure there'll probably be some more information coming out about that soon. I hope so. I really cannot wait to have emblems or skins or whatever they're going to do for structures. So this is the part about Intaki. So the massive Federation Navy project to secure the Intaki system is concluded, and the Intaki has been increased in security status from 0.5 to 0.6, and the Federation Navy has now withdrawn the moratorium on new upwell structures, and capsuleers are able to place, anchor, and online new upwell structures in Intaki again. Okay, didn't know you couldn't there for a while, but I guess the Navy put the word down and wouldn't allow you for a little bit. So you can toggle the global font shadow now. That's in the settings menu. The one thing that's been asked for quite a bit, this added more color options in the overview tabs. As part of your overview now, when you go into settings, if you click on the little square, it gives you, I think, 24 options now for overview tabs. So now with the double overviews and more options for colors, it's much easier to label all your tabs by color. A couple, character counts been added to the mailing list. Simulate ship has been added to the right-click menu of packaged ships. So if you have a ship that's packaged and you can just right-click on it, hit simulate, you don't need to assemble the ship anymore, which is good if you're in a place that can't assemble the ship, or you just have a link to it and it's in a different station or something like that. You can just use the right-click menu from a packaged ship now to go straight to simulate ship. An option to always show your own fleet broadcast has been added. That way, if you're asking for shield or armor, you know that your broadcast has gone through. Shortcut to open the fleet watch list has been added. I'm sure there's a lot of Logi pilots right now that are absolutely screaming for joy. Clear all broadcast icons has also been added. Filter fields have been added to the market order list. So if you had lists in your market, now you can filter those lists even more. And include jump gates has been moved in the autopilot settings. And this has been asked for quite a bit. It came up during the summit. And those of you that know CCP Carker, this is her one of her little things that she was like, oh yeah, that's kind of, because we actually showed her in the game right there while we were at the summit, and she's like, oh yeah, that's that's not right. And she had it fixed in about, I don't know, 30 minutes or so, and we saw it the next day. Now it still has to go through QA and that kind of stuff, but it was pretty cool the way that got fixed. And basically what it was, there was something about security status, and then there was include jump gates, and then there was a security status slider that was on the other side of jump gates. So they just moved that security status slider to put it next to all the other security status questions, and made the jump gates by itself in the autopilot menu. So a few defect fixes here. This one is especially important right now. Improve the client performance in scenes with a large amount of objects, like during a fleet fight. And guys, this isn't going to solve trying to jam 7,000 nerds in a solar system. Nothing's going to do that until they make a Intel or AMD chip that's like 4 million gigahertz. But for a normal fleet fight that's, 50, 100, maybe 150 people, I'm sure that this right here, and they don't go into too much detail, and I'm not sure what I'm allowed to say, but this performance came from a lot of their internal testing and how they render in their internal tools and stuff. And from what I understand, it's going to be quite a decent improvement. So, a couple Mac fixes. This ambient inclusion one at low settings, that's been a problem for the Mac client for quite some time. So I'm glad to see that one fixed. And let's see. The pointer for route prefers shorter, now points to the correct target. The locations. Let's see. The market transaction tab in the wallet now shows the fractional amounts. The create decoration button is back in the decorations tab. Yeah, there for a couple weeks we could not make medals in game. The create decoration button was on vacation for a little bit, so it's back from vacation now, and put it back in the correct place. Let's see. Updated the color for market orders owned by players to differentiate between my orders and in-range ones in the market window. Reformatted the data in the network data monitor window. Yeah, I haven't looked at that yet, so I don't know what all they reformatted, but that thing was a hot mess. So anything they did there couldn't have made it worse. And the same thing with the engine tools window, that Control-Shift-M. There's a lot of stuff in those windows that you use during heavy tie-dye fights and stuff, and they were a hot mess. And it would stink if the engine tools window was causing more lag itself. So hopefully that got cleaned up. Okay, now let's see if Excel's gonna play for me here. Okay, so Excel looks like it's gonna play for me. So we talked about Excel before, and this is kind of goes into kind of the stuff that Nick and I were talking about in some of our past industry shows. So I have an item up here, and I have a Nix, and I used in here the explosion blueprint. So then from the explosion blueprint, I have the components, I have the materials, and I have the excess materials. So you can clearly list. So if you look right here at this C3 FTM acid, it takes 400. And if you go to make that, it only makes in quantities of 150. So in order to make 400, you actually have to make 450, which is why you have an excess material of 50. There's nothing you can do about that. You either buy the 400 that you need. Obviously, this is ME0. I didn't go through and do the ME on this. But you either buy the 400 or you can make the 450, but then you're going to have 50 left over. There's no way to get around that. And the same thing, let's see, the auto integrity preservation seals, you have one left over. You need 801 to build the ship. They build 3 at a time. So what's 801 divided by 3? I bet it's going to be something in 2/3. 801 enter 3 divided by... Oh, it says 267. So why would it be... I don't know why that one's there then. But this is cesium cadmide. It's the same thing. A minimum amount that you can make of that is 500 or 250. So you'd make 2 batches and you'd have an extra 100 left over. But This is kind of the next level of industry that people don't think about. This entire list right here of what you have left over after you go to build something. And this is where the bigger guys have so much more of an advantage, because if we have leftover, we don't care, because we'll use it on the next build. And if we have leftover from that build, we'll use it on the next build and the next build and the next build. Whereas smaller builders who want to build one Nix, and it may be a couple 3 weeks before they build the next one, you start adding up, keeping all this stuff around, and then so now you have 50 C3FTM acid left. Well, now you need to make 400 for the next one. Well, you can only build in 150s. So now you build 150, 150, 150. You have to build another 450. But the next time you're going to have 100 left over, because you'll have 50 left over from the first build, 50 left over from the second build. Now your third one, then you could build 150, 150 and use the 100 that's left over, and now you have an even 400, and now you've used all of your acid. But for the smaller builders, the time that it takes for that, and the amount of money or IST that you have tied up in all these excess materials can be significant. And that's something that you have to keep in mind if you want to build smaller amounts of things. It's not too bad with battleships and below, but once you start getting into capitals, this list gets kind of hard to deal with. The other time this list gets hard to deal with would be Tech 2 battleships, Marauders and Black Ops, and somewhat jump freighters as well. This list gets fairly difficult to manage if you're just building small batches of stuff. Oh, Flea BR or M2 would have lasted about 45 minutes, because then the server would have just crashed. That's what happened in the past. And then you start up the server, and then everybody's trying to log back in. And invariably, one side can log back in, the other side can't. And then the fight's over, and then it's all about trying to get your people out on time, that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's a nightmare if both sides can't get in. That was one of the things with the X-47 fight this last week. Downtime is the natural breakup of that fight. So it's kind of like a node crash, but it's not. It's a predetermined node crash, right? So that was one of the problems when downtime ended and everybody's hammering the auth servers to get back into the game. Once you got past the auth servers, then you're trying to log into the system. The system's trying to start up, and everyone's just trying to dogpile back in. And it only lasted an hour and a half or so before it crashed again. So, it's hard to say. If tie-dye wasn't necessary, it would have probably lasted until one side knew that it was over and just tried to extract as much as they could. I mean, that's what normal when these things, when these fights go down and it's not tie-dye limited. Once one side gets to the point where they know they're losing and they just need to cut their losses, then they start extracting pretty much right away. But it's hard to say. M2 was kind of capped based on the timer of the Keepstar, right? Either the Keepstar would have blown up or not, and that would have probably been the end of the fight. And the same thing with all the other Keepstars, the YZ9 and the FWST Keepstars and stuff. All those fights were fought, but as soon as a Keepstar exploded, Well, the fight was over, because you fight differently when you're trying to conquer an objective. You fight much differently than if you're just duking it out with the other side. So it's hard to. Yeah, it could have been 20 minutes. It could have been 2 hours. How many reinforcements did you have? Hey, can we hold the field if we get another 100 Titans in? Will that turn the tide? Okay, well, try and stem the losses until we can get them down there. There's no, yeah, that's pretty much impossible to answer at this point. Okay, let's see if this will play nice. And it doesn't look like it's going to. No. Sigh. I had this all working before we started too. I know you're not going to believe me, but I did. So let's see. Nope. Why? Let's see if I move it up here. Will that change anything? Nope, it doesn't appear to. If I make it a window, will that change anything? Well, I had a pilot up here so that I could show you how direct enlistment worked and what the control looked like for it, but the game is absolutely not helping here. Let me clear these real quick and I'll try again. So it's a window capture. Yes, it is. Okay, so we're going to name that number 4 now. Making the source visible. Yes. So, oh, that's why it's not. Okay. Okay, there we go. Oh, it's a little bit bigger. Well, I can't help that right now. But this is what in the corporation window, this is what your wars tab looks like. And if you look down here for direct faction enlistment, this is a screen that the CEOs and directors have. So you can choose whether to let the people in your corp join which militia. And like it said in the patch notes, this is a whitelist. What that means is anything that's checked, people in your corp can join. So, and this overrides the friendly fire. So if someone joined Amar and another corp member joined Mimitar and they both undocked, then they can shoot each other legally. They are at war with each other. So CEOs and directors need to be somewhat diplomatic in what they choose. So if you have an affinity for Amar, maybe you uncheck the 3 and you apply these settings. So now people in your corp can only join the Amar Empire. That way, at least everybody's on the same side. If they don't want to join, they're not at war. If they join, then they're at war. But you can't have 2 warring factions in your corp at the same time. And that's how that is actually controlled. So I'm going to add Caldari back in right now. Now this pilot, as you know, we talked about it before. This is what you click on right up here. And I can choose enlist me or enlist my corporation because I'm a director in this corp. But now I tried this earlier just to see if it worked. So if I choose enlist me and join the militia, you are about to enlist as an individual to fight for the Caldari state. Doing so may put you at war with members of your own corporation and or alliance. Are you certain you wish to proceed? Yes. Now it says I can't join because I must wait approximately 22 hours before enlisting again because, like I said, I tried it just to see how it worked for the show. C'est la vie, but that's exactly how it would work for you if you wanted to join the militia yourself. And the war zone details, this kind of gives you the list of all the systems, whether they're contested, whether they're frontline, rear guard, or command operations systems right here. So, and then you can just right click on them and set your destination and go directly to that system and start fighting as soon as you enlist. You can go right to a system, or if you want to go to a frontline system, set destination right there. You go right to a frontline and you can start fighting for your faction. And if you just want to do the things for the contest that's on right now, you can, I believe you can go to the agency for that. Where's my agency tab? Yeah, there's my agency tab. So factional campaigns, Shipcaster Shadow War. So there's your 4 empires right there, and it tells you overview, your next step, and exactly what you can do. You join the militia, and then there's the different types of sites that you can run, and it kind of gives you progress on how you're doing. Now you have to, I'm pretty sure you have to be in the militia for this. So instead of clicking up here, you can also click right here, join the Caldari state. We already know that I can't. But there's your rewards as you go along. And this is how you find the sites. And you can go out there and start immediately. And this is an alpha pilot that I'm on right now. So you can absolutely do it with an alpha pilot, especially the low-level sites, and join your faction today. Okay. Well, sorry about the technical difficulties there. That's pretty much our motto around here. Okay, let's see. Flee. So basically the idea of huge battles with or without tie-dye or server crashing is so alien to us that we don't even know what the dynamics, tempo, the mega feet even would be. Yeah, we know exactly what it would be because a lot of us were here before 2011, I think is when tie-dye was in. I know it's been over a decade now since tie-dye was put in. Fights before tie-dye were absolutely horrible because it's just like tie-dye except for nothing worked and then the node would just crash. Tie-dye, sometimes the node crashes, but for the most part, it hangs on pretty good. We had a lot of fights in Delve where, don't get me wrong, tie-dye stinks. They call it soul crushing for a reason. But the server would hang on and we could do something. Whereas before, the server would just hang on for a little bit and then just die a painful death. And it would pretty much always resulted in a node crash. And then when the nodes came back up, it wasn't pretty. It was like the node coming back in X47 where you got rubber banded and people that thought they warped their ships out, now they didn't warp their ships out. Because when it restarts, it has to restart in a known state, right? I guess it's kind of like on your computer, if you lose your internet and you're still watching YouTube or you're still doing something and you hit save on your spreadsheet and then the computer reboots, when the computer comes back up and the internet comes back, then some things that you did on the computer, the internet, the cloud may not know that you did them because you lost internet first. It's kind of the same way with the server and the way that it goes. Once it gets bogged down like that, they try and do ship deaths and this kind of stuff as the highest priority. and that stuff gets saved to the database. But a ship warping or a ship jumping or something like that, that's a lower priority. So when it restarts, you never know what's going to happen. And that happened in M2. A lot of ships jumped in, but by the time that the node crashed, the node never even registered them as being on the node. So even though they may have looked like they died or whatever, when that node restarted, those people weren't in that node when it restarted because they never were actually on the node. So then they ended up back where they started as like a failed jump. And that was basically the outcome of the fights before tie-dye. It was just nothing. Oh, it was horrible. Now, I'm not saying tie-dye is good by any means, but just the way that it works, like you have a chance, right? Whereas without tie-dye, there was just no chance. It was either live or died. With tie-dye, you've got live, tie-dye, or die, right? And die happens, but not nearly as often as it did before. I know that was probably a 5-minute rant of, something that probably could take 30 seconds to answer, but hopefully that answered your question. Okay, well, I think that's about it for now. I'm just trying to do these shows kind of slow. I'm not going to stick to any timeline. I'm just going to do them when I have a chance and when things are out there happening. I'm not sure if the timer comes out tomorrow or Thursday, but when the timers come out, I am going to try and get up and stream what's going on when the next Keep Stars come out. I don't know how well that's going to work for me, but may give it a shot. Anyway, for everybody here at Talking Stations, fly safe, have a good night, take care.